Greetings everyone, this is Lodrik and this is a game War in the Pacific Admets Edition. This is the match against Dojo and today we will check the turn number 50. Means the battle activity for the 15th and the 16th of March 42. Last turn, the first carrier fleet sunk or at least heavily damaged the tanker convoy of Dojo, source of Suva. So we maybe will see the additional activity. In Java, I think last turn I took the base of Surabaya with a swift victory, so there is maybe a little time needed to regroup the armies. So not sure where we can see activity. Maybe in China some land battle, and then of course always some air war in China, or maybe also some air war in Burma if Dojo try maybe to attack me and stop the advance of the Japanese 25th Army in direction of Rangoon. But we will see. So far Dojo was more the passive player, safe, keep his army out of any battle if possible, and waiting. So the knight was inactive, only maybe some encounter, but no activity, only found some task forces. But this is now at Port Blair in the morning of 25th of March. So this is only two small cargo ships, maybe 2-point cargo ships, so not the real battle, because we are at 1000 yards, so we are already the most closest position can reach. It was a very one-sided battle, but normally it was not a battle, this was only slaughter. So Dojo sent his cargo ships without convoy, but of course even if Dojo sent 2 destroyers here with his task force, it will only be additional burning steel in the Indian Ocean for him and more kill records for the Japanese Navy. So again, Dojo's Navy convoy ships have no chance against the Japanese task forces. And this is maybe now at the port of Rangoon, but very close to Rangoon. So I don't know if we enter the port of Rangoon, hard to see because I cannot move now. But it's very similar story. A small cargo task force of Dojo, and this is now a corvette maybe. So a very special ships for anti-submarine warfare, but they are really only good for anti-submarine warfare and not for any surface engagement. And we have here 2 heavy cruisers and my typical layout, 2 main battleships or heavy cruisers and supported by 4 or 6 destroyers. And this is normally often enough firepower to destroy most cargo task forces. And if this kind of task forces engage the enemy surface task force with similar firepower, then at least normally most of time the Japanese task forces can survive a battle and then retreat. Uh, and the Japanese surface ships, destroyers, light cruisers, heavy cruisers, they all have this long range torpedoes. And even if so, the possibility that the Japanese destroyer hit a heavy surface unit with a destroyer is always there. Uh, I think the range of the torpedoes is 18 or 21,000 yards, so it's nearly similar, very similar to the range of 8-inch guns, or at least 6-inch guns. So this is now again a slaughter. Nothing more to say, nothing more to watch. It's maybe Dojo try to reinforce Rangoon. Here we can see now. Yeah, so this was the Port Blair battle, and here we enter the hex of Rangoon. And luckily we don't hit a mine. Of course, if a task force enter a hex with a mine, then there's always a possibility that a ship will hit the mine. And a mine hit for a destroyer is often a kill. For a heavy cruiser or battleship, it's depending how critical is the hit. But I would always say a mine hit is very similar to a torpedo hit. So here we kill, nothing really special. Light cargo ships. I think it's always good if I can get rid of some corvettes, because they are really a pain in the ass for sub. And if I have here my subs, and if I have a sub fighting with a corvette, it will normally not end well for my submarine. So if I can kill them in surface battle, then why not? This is now near Calcutta, but this is only this torpedo boat stuff from the British side. So a 1-point ship, only a very local patrol ship. Nothing more to say for this. But one additional point for the Japanese Navy. Yeah, so there are many task forces in Calcutta, and my task force is, I think, in Port Diamond, or I think they call it something like this. It's the real port of Calcutta, because I think Calcutta itself has not a real port, or only very small port, and so it's the port city of Calcutta. Okay. So my first carrier fleet is now southwest of Suva. And we get detected. So this is now my sweep. This is okay. A little problem is only that normally my original intent was that last turn that I arrive east of Suva and fight the enemy air cover, and then walk here source, or sail here source, and hopefully engage something. And that we did. I mean, my carrier fleet engaged this tanker fleet convoy, and was able to score some hits, let's say this. And now at the second day, I hope I can finish enemy cap fighter and maybe attack the airport and the port of Suva. But last turn we had bad weather here, so we was not able to attack Suva airfield at the first day, only it's the second day. So, and maybe, I'm not sure if maybe Dojo also was able to bring additional air force to the base. It's always a surprise. This is normally the advantage of a surprise. If you can surprise your enemy, it is of course for him not able to reinforce the base. And then you can often outclass them because you take the the time and the location where you engage. This is the advantage of the attacker, that you choose the battlefield and the time. But if the defender of course can detect my carrier fleet early on, then there's no advantage more. There's no surprise strike more. So I only keep this in mind. I'm not sure if Dojo did this, if Dojo was able to reinforce Suva with additional cap fighters. But the numbers of P-39s for air cover here are for me a little surprisingly high. I would say it like this. So I guess that Dojo was able to bring somehow here Air Force to Suva. Or it can also be that's Dojo by pure luck, or let's say, or good planning, was able to reinforce Suva earlier than I expected. I expected the Dojo first end of the month or maybe beginning of April had additional heavy reinforcements for Suva, at least for the Air Force. But nothing is ever perfect, and especially in a war, things often can change in a short time very drastically and end badly, and with a lot of bloodshed. Because normally, of course, someone can say now, and many enemy fighters means many enemy kills for my zero fighters. But keep in mind that my fighters are elite status. They normally cannot get better. They are at 99% of possible, more or less, skill level. In the dojos, American low level fighters and low skill from point of experience and skill level, they are simply other class. Maybe they are at least 2 class lower than this elite pilots of the zeros. So I must kill them at least normally 2 to 1. Normally I need maybe 3 kills for one of my own losses. And the next problem is, of course, because I attack now Suva, means I maybe can destroy now American airframes, but most of the pilots will maybe survive. And for me, it is, it's only 2 hexes from the carriers, but a damaged airplane land on a carrier is always more likely to have a crash landing. Now I would say, because these are elite pilots, I really don't care the airframe. If it's an elite pilot, I really only care the pilot. And if the elite pilot will always crash his zero at the end of the day, but can achieve 2 or 3 air victories, I would always say, why not? I give you a 0, you make 2 kills for me, and everything is fine. So we can also see that it was for Dojo still able to reinforce his cap fighters again and again. So even if my zeros are able to get rid of most of these P-39s, the high sheer number of interceptors are really surprisingly high for me. But it's not terrible bad, I would say. It's simply only I'm not sure if this is really the best outcome for me here. And just now I lost 1-0, and this is always let me feel not happy, I would say. But at the end I can also say We coming with 17 zeros. At the end of the day, the first zero sweep already was able to achieve victory over the location with at least 40%. I mean, well, let's say roughly, if 7 out of 17 airplanes are still flying over Suva airport or port without enemy fighters left, and Dojo had 21, so then we at least clearly dominate this air battle. But still I have to pay a price for this victory. But at the end of the day we can see what I really lost, how many zeros, and more importantly how many pilots are lost. So this is now the second sweep. So this is always one carrier, because one carrier air wing is based on around 18 zero fighters in this stage of the war. I think in June or July the Japanese Navy Air Force will have a reorganization, let's say this. They will increase the numbers of fighters and I think dive bombers, but they will decrease the number of torpedo bombers. So far the Japanese, they have simply a very strong focus for torpedo bombers. And 18 fighters are okay, but I also will prefer more like I think they changed later to 24 or 27 fighters, something like this. This give the carriers more protection against air attack or additional escort fighters. But of course a fighter is a fighter, he can never strike anything, nearly never. So to have a carrier full of fighters have of course the nice advantage that it is nearly impossible for the enemy to strike your own carriers. This will be a very strong defense asset. And if you can bring your fighters with your bomber fleet, it will also protect this bomber fleet. The question is only at the end, if you have 100 fighters but only 20 bombers, if these 20 bombers are able to achieve the hit, at the end we make you one kill official. Oh, nothing too special, I would say. Okay, and this is now I would say I think I make a mistake. Because normally I have 4 carriers and each carrier have an air wing, and I choose to have 2 fighter air wings sweeping Suva, 1 fighter air wing to cover the task force, and 1 fighter air wing to be escort fighter for my own strike on Suva. And simply I choose the weakest fighter group to cover my task force based on, let's say, based on the information or my belief that Dojo don't have much air force in Suva, at least strike air force. Maybe fighters, but not too many dive bombers, level bombers, torpedo bombers like this. And my main the main issue I saw was that I must get rid of the enemy cap fighters, because it was not because of the bad weather, my first airstrike on Suva was not able to launch, So I had only one air battle of Suva so far, and I could not make sure that the enemy cap fighters are written or destroyed or at least crippled. So I keep this 2 sweeps, 1 cap fighter and 1 escort fighter setup. But now we can see that the sheer numbers of Dojo's airstrike is simply too high for me. 8 zeros can never stop such big strike force. Now, I mean, this is I only want to explain what I did here wrong, because I would say it was wrong. I maybe had to not use the weakest air group to defend my cap or my task force. Maybe I had to choose the strongest air group to defend my carriers, simply because even if my airstrike on Suva will have success, normally I don't expect here anything with real high value. On the other hand, my own carriers are all main fleet carriers, first class carriers. So, and especially with the Japanese, like I said many times before, it's nearly the reinforcements that the Japanese get is small numbers, often also not the high quality. The Japanese are getting some medium carriers, 4 or 5, but not the normally main fleet carriers. Only one main fleet carrier will normally reinforce the Japanese, and Taiyo, it's mid of 44, end of 44, something like this. So the protection of your own air carriers must normally have the highest priority, I would say. Even if this will now means that if I send this will normally, of course, I can only use the numbers of fighters I have. So if I have more fighters for my own defense, I will lack fighter power in sweeping or in escort duty. But even if it's painful, maybe to lose some strike air force, or the sweep is maybe not so successful like hoped for, will simply only cost you some fighters, some bombers and some pilots. It's still possible to replace them. A ship you cannot replace. So anyway, even if it was not able for my cap fighters to stop this strike, it was maybe enough to at least bring a little chaos and disorder in this attempt. And of course, if Dojo only have here 3 Vincents, I think they are normally torpedo bombers, but I don't know why they don't carry torpedoes. A little strange. But they're using this 1,000 pound semi-armor bombs. I mean, this is also normally a strong payload, but 3 bombers with each only 1 bomb is not, the numbers are simply too low to really have a hit. Of course, by luck you can make the hit, but this is unrealistic low strike force to have normally a success, I would say. Only by pure luck you will create out of this something meaningful. So this is now the typical bombardment in China. A lot of units are disabled, and because these units normally have no supply, so it's not easy for Dojo to reactivate these disabled units. And here the strike, The hit power is simply much smaller because this is this rough terrain area, and I think the defender get more defense points against the air strikes. It's more easy for the units to hide here. In open plain fields, it's easy for the bomber and the striker aircraft to spot the enemy and hit or score more hits. And here is this, you can see similar numbers, but much less hits on Dojo's ground forces. Still no Chinese fighter more in the air. But it's okay. I don't blame Dojo for this. I can simply use my bomber wings to attack any target I want, more or less. This was just 13 destroyed units. So if a unit is normally a unit will change from ready combat to disabled and then from disabled to destroyed. So if the airstrikes will normally create destroyed units, then you know that the enemy formation is often already at a breaking point. Okay. These are these crazy seagulls. Maybe these are the most, at least the most active, I would say. Air wing or air unit Dojo have so far in the war. They're really coming out every day, once or twice. And at least they try something. Not that they are really super successful, but at least they try. Okay, this is now this B-25 and B-26 medium bombers, twin engine Navy bombers. So they are normally both good. They have very similar payload, and I don't know, we don't know, they are very, very similar. The difference between B-26 and B-25 I always forget, but they are something like the Japanese and L bombers or Betty bombers, but the difference is that they carry much more numbers of bombs, but they cannot carry torpedoes so far I know. And they of course they have armor. Allies bombers have often armor. They have more also defense firepower. So they are not really the same. They're lacking the range. The Japanese have simply much more range and can carry torpedoes. And the American Navy bombers, they often have they are much more tough. So it was not able for my Zeros to stop them. At least we hurt them and damage them and bring them out of a good attack formation. And we can see that the Japanese flag is not so great, but we still damage many of Dojo's attacker strike force. And it was also, even if the Japanese flag is not so good, if you have the sheer number of anti-flag power, then you can also kill some airplanes at least. So it was 7 bombers come through and attack, but at the end nothing hits. And they carry the 500-pound bomb, so this is only then at the end 250 kilogram bomb. This will hurt a carrier for sure, and if you receive 2-3 hits, then maybe it will also stop, will normally makes the carrier impossible to operate airplanes, because often if the flight deck of a carrier is too damaged, I'm not sure how the game completely calculates this, but at a certain point, at least if the ship have something like I think 30 or 40 system damage, then normally the carrier cannot use more the air wings, and then it's only like a ship but not more a carrier. And then it's really time to try to reach a port and fix the damage. I'm also not sure if I think this is the main issue, something like 30 or 40 system damage. So at the end, second airstrike of Dojo, again no success for Dojo. Dojo's pilots are very skillful in avoiding to score a hit, I would say. This is Dojo's best ability so far. And the sheer number of airstrikes is really, for me, a surprise. Not only the strike air force, but also the number of escort fighters Dojo have here. So if normally every attack will come without escort, then I will score here many, at least damage, damaged bombers, but maybe also killed bombers. But now these are simply too many escort fighters for my few zeros left. And I can only hope that my ships can avoid, or maybe best that simply Dojo's pilots don't know what they're doing and only playing cowboy and something like this. And we can see how skillful they really always not hit something. Again and again and again. Maybe we can score at least one more hit. A damage, not a kill. PTT. But again, 1 kill, B-26 and 3 damage. So very similar again. And always Dojo come always in 5,000 feet. This is normally the best attack altitude for level attack for the allies, simply because it avoid all light flag for the Japanese have, and only my heavy flag can attack this air wings. And compare, I must always attack in 7,000 feet to avoid allied medium flag batteries. So there's an advantage for the allies that they can go simply already lower and attack normally with less flag losses. Simply because the allies, they have more flag power and they also have more range with their flag guns. At least they have this medium caliber. The Japanese simply never develop, or maybe they develop this flag guns, but for at least the Navy don't care to use them. The Japanese Navy really say only light and heavy flag, no medium. Okay. Again, airstrike from Raboul. Try to finish off this Australian leftover units from the Port Moresby garrison. And we can see here, we destroy enemy fighting units, so maybe not the numbers are high, but at the end, these are the squads are destroyed. This is only a number. I think this is, I don't really know if this is really important. Normally the number that you can see here is doesn't matter. Only this is important. These are the numbers you really see on the map. Okay, this is now already the airstrike numbers 4, I think, today. And there's really not more much cap fighters left. But the Zeros, they really try their best to engage the enemy. And at least force Dojo's Navy strike airplanes to change from an attack formation to a defense formation. So give a lower hit chance for Dojo at the end. And now we fighting in at the end at the Japanese hex. So if any airframe gets destroyed here in the open sea, I don't think that the pilot can return for Dojo. So the Zeros get rid of all the escort. Okay, there was no very short. There was no enemy escort fighter, but now one additional escort arrived. But okay. Now there are really all escort left. So our Zeros can normally attack now the strike aircraft. I would normally prefer, of course, if my Zeros can attack first the Vincent, because these are as in light bombers, but they carry the more deadly payload. But I think we just force some B-26, they just break the attack. This I think happened because if there's no escort fighters more left, I think the bombers they have a tendency to flee the battlefield and try to escape. And for me as a defender, it is really only important to break the enemy attack. It's really not so important for me how many enemy aircraft I can destroy here now. I really only worry about my task force and not to create here the most best kill ratio. So my Zeros focus all on this B-26 and was not able nearly to stop them. So the Winston's get now a free attack run. But at least now the flag will stop some, or at least they try to stop them. Yeah. And somehow really Dojo really hit nothing here. Again and again and again. Somehow I really have the feeling that maybe, I don't know if Dojo does this on purpose, that he won't lure me in some traps, that he say, the Japanese are so great. I don't know, but I think the Japanese are so great and the Americans are so shitty here. At least at this mid of March, somehow this is a complete failure of the American Navy Air Force. I mean, I'm not sure how you can explain a so incompetent airstrike of the Suva Air Force here. I really don't know if this if they do this on purpose, but at least they must normally score one hit. But somehow they mess up again and again and again. So this is now airstrike number 5 of the day. But here now only 3 B-25s left. So this is what I mean. You can have many fighters. Yes, you can then win the air battle. But if you have no striking force left, then the air victory will not give you anything, not benefit you. Oh. Yeah, 2 less cap fighters. If I had 4 or even 8 more Zero fighters, this would be a very bloody day for Dojo. But still, I would say I can fully accept this outcome of the battle and say, well, Dojo try next time again with a little more success. I mean, I normally don't want to ask him to have more success, but it's a little. I feel a little sorry for Dojo at this point already. Also, this is now my original strike on Suva. I think this is now an airfield attack, and we have here 180 attack aircraft. And this is my normally my escort fighter. And if I had now this 18 zeros for cap on my carrier and give the 8 of the other air wing with my strike, it would be maybe better. Then it will be here 1-to-1 battle. 8 zeros against 8 P-39. We will see. What I really not 100% be sure is now how the game calculator attack now on the airfield. If Dojo had an airstrike on my carrier group, because normally maybe both air forces was now already on the way. So I don't know if I attack now the airfield, but Dojo sent all his air wings out. If there's no airplane left on the runway, because if I see this now, then we're making here many hits. I mean, not unlimited hits, but we're making here hits on the airport, but somehow not one airplane gets damaged on the ground. So I have maybe the feeling that because all air of Dojo's air wings was maybe out for attack, I cannot attack this air force on the ground. But then it would be a little unlucky that I hit more or less the empty airbase, because the main purpose of this attack was normally to destroy airplanes on the ground. But somehow I failed in this situation, and I also lost some bombers against the Dojo's interceptors, and At least one again for the flag. Yeah. So the strike on Suba was at the end a failure, because this is for me a failure, because it was not able. I hoped to kill 8 or 10 airframes maybe on the ground, especially something like long range Catalinas. So because I would normally kill Catalinas first, because if the dojo cannot see me, I can operate free will. Okay, this is now the seagulls, and these 3 seagulls can achieve what dojo's, I don't know, 40, 50 attack strike fighters and bombers was not able to do. So somehow they score 2 bomb hits on one of my cargo ships, and they even kill someone. I mean, they carry only this 250, 100 kilogram bomb, so they don't have really this so much impact. But for a cargo ship, 2 bomb hits is already something. The ship itself has no damage, it's only heavy fire. So, but the Japanese, they don't have really good skill for this how do you call this, damage control skills. And for the allies, it is much easier to make a firefighting and float damage preparation, or not preparation, but handling float damage like this. Japanese ships have still the tendency to, that the fire gets bigger and bigger and hurts the ship more, and that the float damage will also increase. Now, yeah, again, some cleanup operation. So at the end, it was a successful day for the Japanese Navy, I would say. It was a lucky day for the Japanese carrier fleet, or I would say, because there was no real hit on the carrier fleet. At least the cargo ship maybe got some hits, but it was maybe still okay. And the Japanese Air Force was, I don't know, it was a mix, because maybe the fighters was okay, but my airstrike on Suba was more or less useless and cost me even some bombers. Or I would say this was not really so successful. It was okay, but I will not try to copy this again. So this is now more or less this battle of Yan'an, because this is normally the army of Yan'an, but Dojo run away and try to escape, but of course the Japanese Air Force slowed down Dojo's forces, and so my Japanese army. This is now the army around the North Chinese army area. So this is a 4-star general, and this is Kwantung Army overall headquarters. So this is a 5-star general, and they are in a chain of command. So this unit's all belonging to the North Chinese army, getting the combat bonus. But this North Chinese army also belongs to the Kwantung army, if I'm right. So they are all linked somehow together. And then this unit's getting double combat bonus. I think each headquarter gives 10%, something like this. So not this raw fighting power will increase, but normally the adjusted value will increase. And then we can see that this is now a kill ratio 1-to-1. But like I said again, these numbers are normally only for propaganda, and they not really care. I mean, I would normally not care these numbers too much. It's only numbers. This is what really gives points, and this is important. So there are a lot of Japanese units are disabled, but nearly nothing gets destroyed. And the Chinese, they have much more destroyed unit. But keep in mind that you must always have the kill ratio of 4 to 1. So normally if you know 100 destroyed units, they are equally to 25 Japanese units. So this is a factor 4 to 1. I must kill with my Japanese units 4 times the numbers of Chinese to have an equal kill ratio at the end for victory points purpose. This is now again this. I only try to hold Dojo's forces to because this is a battle I cannot really create a victory for Japanese, so I must get here reinforcements. Reinforcements is on the way, but still need time. Merrick. So this looks easy. The Dutch forces not really are able to create anything to stop me. It's only a base force. Good. So March 15th for the land force was in favor for the Japanese, I would say. Not the best day, but also no setback. Looks okay for me so far. Okay, so this is one of these British corvettes, anti-submarine units. So this is exactly what I normally don't like to see. That of course this is most likely an outcome in the future, because normally the Allies, they have more and more anti-submarine equipment and units, so it will be more hard for the Japanese submarines in the future to have an easy victory against the cargo tanker force of Dojo. So I can only try to stay in the deep water to have at least a higher chance to escape. And in this case it was more or less a success. The submarine avoid all attacks. So okay. At least no damage, no lost submarine. Now we can see what the Japanese submarine can do against the cargo ship. Torpedo strike, and again fuel cargo burns. So this is a dry cargo ship loaded with oil, or maybe fuel. I would normally say fuel, not. But so Dojo uses dry cargo ships for fuel transport. And if a cargo ship have fuel for cargo and get a hit like this and the cargo is burning, then the ship is normally to 90. I think that really always lost. If it's not exactly at the port, and this is a big port and maybe help immediately with the firefighting, then there's nearly never a way that the ship can survive this. And it is heavy fires, heavy damage. I don't doubt this ship will go down. If not immediately, then over time. So yeah, over time. Even at the same day already, we get the sinking sound. Of course, one cargo ship is, I would say, simply far too less to have any impact. 2-3 cargo ships per day, this is, I think, is necessary. Now, yeah, the first day I sunk a lot of these light cargo ships, but that they also have not a big impact. Okay, so our battleship fleet was able to intercept this. Not sure, but possible that this is the same task force we had just before this anti-submarine battle. You see, this is now a one-sided battle because two battleships and 6 support destroyers against one corvette. Yeah, this is the same corvette. So this is the same task force. Just our submarine was not able to strike this task force, but our surface task force, of course, have here now an easy game, and so I don't must wait for this. Again, everything gets killed, and everyone is happy, at least on the Japanese side. Who cares, the British here? And I already sent you some now minesweepers, so I must get rid of these mines that I can use support of Sorabaya for my own task forces. And after I sweep the mines, I normally must create my own minefield to avoid any surprise strike on my port. At least for the main ports, it's really, I think, necessary to have at least 150, better 300 mines. 300 mines I would say is enough, but at least 150 to have a very high chance to create a mine hit on enemy task force enter the same hex. So this is now near the maximum range of my zeros, so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This is 11 because 11 is at the end normal range with drop tanks. And this will keep the fatigue and tiredness of the pilots at an acceptable level, and even if the zeros gets damaged, there's still a possibility to return. If you make this extended range with drop tanks, this really makes the pilot very tired, and every damaged airplane have a very high chance to have an accident on the return way. So, and also what I can see is now, so this is I think already the third day of air battle of Suva, but Dojo is still able to bring equally high numbers of air forces up to the air. So it's not that there are only 2-3 air cobras left, no, it's still over a dozen, nearly 2 dozen airplanes here. So it was not able to completely really sweep Suva Air Base, crash the Air Force on the ground, and let the burning airfield back behind me. Now one of my good zeros are killed again. Yeah. Yeah. I would always like to see more kills and not so many damage. Enemy return to base, again damage and return to base, something like this. But I still would say this is related to that the Ally airplanes are simply much more tough. They are much better protected. To at least if I attack the enemy base, I must simply accept this situation that I can damage so often I want these airplanes. Most of them will only be out of action for 1 or 2, 3 days, and latest after 1 week I will see them again and again and again and again. But in the moment I more or less give up to attack and I wait for Dojo to strike me, the situation will change, because then simply I defend my own base. Dojo must come to me. Dojo's damaged airplane will have much higher tendency to crash on the return way, and then Dojo have to organize and calculate if he can afford this kind of strikes, or if he. I mean, the allies, they cannot bleed dry because they get more or less unlimited backup power, and again and again more and more stuff. But it will, if the allies maybe push early on too much too fast, they maybe burn through their halfway decent air force, and then fall back to a very low level of skill, and maybe need longer time to recover. So I'm not sure how Dojo will play this. If he try immediately maybe in May to push back, or if he really maybe wait up to June, July, and give his air force more time to organize and train more pilots, have more backup, have higher standard fighter level experience, something like this. At least we can kill some of this P-39s. Oh yeah, but this is I would say a not good ratio. This is maybe just acceptable, but I would not really be happy about this. So now it's maybe the Dojo's air force is near the end. Because most of Dojo's air force maybe not are destroyed, but now damaged on the ground and waiting for maintenance and repair. But I can also not afford to stay in this area for too long time, because I'm really not sure where is the Dojo's carrier units, and I really like to play with fast strike surprise tactics, and not simply rely on pure numbers and strength. So maybe one kill. Oh, okay. Who is it? Nothing special in China so far. again and again. The seagull is coming again. But this time no hit. Okay, the morning airstrikes. Okay, so there we can see there was just a Catalina killed by our cap fighters in Java. This is always, of course, a nice outcome. But it's not happened too often, so. But again, this is maybe also related because the Japanese, they don't have radar, or I just start getting radar. I still was not able to ship them out. The numbers are also not the best. It needs time to organize radars for the big bases for the Japanese. But I hope to finish this first radar generation maybe somewhere in the mid of April, end of April. I try to get in every base a radar set so that it's maybe more easy to intercept enemy airstrikes or recon airplanes, something like this Catalinas. And again, but not this time. So, airstrikes afternoon are also over. Picking up some undefended small bases here in the south of the Philippines. And the second battle of this Japanese Kwantung army against the Chinese Yan'an army, I would call it. You can also see that the Chinese, they also have a 4-star general here, so this is a war area, and 2 3-star generals with the army group and all his equipment. The drop of attack value for the Japanese is is very high, I would say, compared to the Chinese units. But I would still say the numbers are increasingly better for the Japanese. The only one, two, three, four units are destroyed for the Japanese, mostly only disabled. In the Allied, they have much higher losses on destroyed, but it is 5-to-1 kill ratio, so it is okay because it's better than 4-to-1, or at least 4-to-1. But it's this kind of battles are still, they just barely acceptable for me. I normally like to have a much more clean, fast outcome, and not this ongoing slaughter. I want fight with skills and tactic, or not only with force. So, end of the day. Yeah. This is now March 17th. First, we can check the intelligence report. So, we can see a very balanced outcome at the end. Dojo lost 20 in air-to-air, Japan 10. But of course, this day was much higher flag losses for Dojo, but at the end only 4 is also nothing too crazy. And the operational losses are equally 10-10. So at the end, it's 34-21. This is a okay ratio, I would say. It's maybe a little more worse than the standard ratio, but still acceptable. And if we can see what really gets destroyed, his Kate bombers, these are all killed over Suva. So I lost more or less 8 of my airplanes with no real impact. This is a little unlucky. The zeros, 4 gets killed in the air-to-air and 4 are operational losses. This is okay. Especially if we see this 8 zeros against 26 Arakobas or P-39Ds. So this is normally in a good ratio. I mean, it's like better than 3-to-1, but at least 3-to-1 kill ratio. It is okay. I mean, it's still not so great, but it's okay. And we kill not really many B-26, only 5. Yeah. Can be better, but maybe okay. And at the end, these are only airframes. We lost 5 pilots, 1 is wounded, and 5 are missing. So, but I think from the missings, most are these torpedo bombers are over Suva. They are all missing. Killed in action 5. What they really miss is normally to split this to get the information. These are fighters, recon. Nah, the game don't tell you this. You can only check the operational and hope. Sometimes you can see it here, but I think also not always. I don't know if I can see it now here, but you get only information that some guy makes some kills. Then you can see here written off. This is after too much damage. So, but this normally would always means if the 0 is written off, then the pilot is not killed. Damage written off. Crashed on landing. Yeah. It's I would normally like to understand which pilots are gets killed more easily. But it's a game. Nothing is perfect. So ship sunk was last turn from the Japanese. Again nothing. And for the Allies, many small stuff. Two normal cargo ships here and a bunch of light cargo ships, so nothing really crazy important. I would simply say that for me, the most important is that I get rid of two of these British corvettes. They are nothing really too special, but they are really the best. And I think later on, I don't know if they're exactly the same. No, yeah. Later they getting also radar and additional sub hunter equipment, so they are now not super good, but they are already okay for sub hunting. But they for sure, if Dojo can keep them and upgrade this kind of units, they're getting much more deadly for my submarines. So, but at all, this is maybe just enough to keep up with the production of Dojo. So maybe Dojo will get even more of this. But it's not bad, I would say. It's okay. So the whole day was okay. Could be better, could be more worse. So this, I can see over 50,000 Chinese forces. But I also saw in the last battles that these Chinese forces are out of supply, and maybe they starting to break. The question is only if my Japanese forces will break first. If I see here this the layout of my units, I can see that the fatigue around 20 is normally still okay, but the disruption is with 20 a little high. Normally I like to have this value under 10. So I'm not sure if I will attack again or if I make a rest day. Dojo try to escape for sure, but maybe I will focus my air force to only attack this unit to let them suffer more and then attack a turn later. We will see. My units are arriving at this base here, so I can normally take the base next turn without a fight, and my main strike force is here also on the way, but I'm not sure if I can arrive next turn already. So then we have the Battle of Langzhou maybe next turn, but latest next turn I would say. Maybe. And here there are 14 units, so Dojo have here some bigger unit to hold the city. I can only hope that my main strike force is able to crash Dojo. And this is normally a combination of more armies. So, like I said before, I organize my strike forces always around armies. And nothing else. If I try to get all the units of the 12th armies and the 11th armies, and then the armies are the minimum or the smallest operational units for me. I will never split armies up in sub-armies. So, and this is the first step. And then I will make a choice how many armies have to operate together. And this is often heavily related on my task, where I want to go, my recon information. I must know how good or strong is Dojo's defense force, and I try at least to have double the firepower than Dojo have. Because what I said before, I want normally a clean, fast victory. So I focus my attempt for one task. The downside is that of course I cannot attack many targets at the same time. So I use a slow, steady, maybe aggressive game style. But it is for sure not the fastest game style. But it's a game style allow me to achieve a victory without high losses. And this is the main purpose. And everyone is free to play the game in any style he won't go, but this is only my tactic. Yeah. So, and is of course always related to how the enemy is playing. In this kind of game, it works so far well, I would say, because Dojo was only running away. He never maybe really make any counter strikes. So because if I don't feel any pressure, I can focus my strike forces in this kind of strong assets. If maybe Dojo would use maybe his army much aggressive and try to make counter strikes, then I also have to bunch up more units maybe for a defense. So, but because Dojo more or less only let me come and I can choose the location and the battlefield, then I choose of course a location in the battlefield and the numbers in favor for my own operations. So this is there are two guys playing this game, and here in Burma, my units had a rest day because it's simply nearly impossible to get enough supplies here over this small mountain pass. So my units will start to suffer here. My combat values will drop here over time, but I hope that I have still enough fighting power. Wait, this one. So that I can crash the British forces. So I keep here the disruption is normally the main goal for me. Have this under 10 and I'm fine. Fatigue is normally not so important for me, but keep this under 20 and I'm also fine. And the TOE I normally try to keep over 80. If a unit have less than 80, I normally would say I don't use this unit for attack. Oh, here is all fine, nothing happened here, nothing happened here. I don't know, my carrier fleet is already ready to move out again, maybe. So I think I will I think I upgrade this unit again already, but I have not enough replacement for the dive bombers. And I maybe give them already last time some airplanes, so they are now grayed out. Because you can only give once every 7 days reinforcements. So, maybe I must wait one more day before I move my carrier fleet out again. And I think also my carrier is still here on the way. So, yeah, if I'm lucky, the carrier arrives next turn. But latest next turn, I think I will arrive in Singapore. And then it's time to create 2 carrier fleets and go out for the next strike on Ceylon. Yeah, nothing more here happened. Yeah, I unload here some forces, but this is only some support stuff. There's more stuff coming now. Here's a whole new division coming. So I will bring here additional forces to destroy this a little stronger 11 units, 22,000, so maybe 10,000 soldiers. They also have some tanks and some guns, so it's a little more for me to get rid of it. So I need more attack value because now I really have here only just so nicht. Maybe this is just enough to attack here, but here again I have only 9,000 soldiers and maybe Dojo have the same number. I can do it, but it will end bloody and I don't want to do this. I have time, I can wait a little longer. The same here, I rest my army here, so now the fatigue and this disruption is now very low. So will I use this army now to crash the rest of this Dutch Surabaya army. I first get rid of this and take the east of Java, and after this is done, I will bring all together to Batavia, and then maybe end of the month, maybe it needs up to 2 weeks. If I'm done with all of this, I will have the Battle of Batavia, and yeah. At the same time, I hope I have the Battle of Palmbang. So 2 weeks, latest 3 weeks, I hope I can get rid of all this Dutch stuff. So not much happened here. Some submarines operating here in west of Perth with some success. Here, I have here now some scout information, but now the detection level is 8 out of 10, so high detection. So somehow the game says there's one fighter ready. I only can see ready airplanes. So 20 bombers, one fighter, and 16 scout planes or transport planes. So Dojo have here a lot of stuff. But this is all what I have, what I can see here now. And this looks so far empty, or I have no information here. So I will see how close I come to Nomaya. I don't know if Dojo have here. If Dojo have here now all his air force in Suva, he normally cannot have too much stuff here. So I will choose if I go close to Nomaya or if I maybe go here and check around. Not sure how this ends. But so far Dojo's airstrikes was all not really successful. So I don't fear too much now here. And again, I use normally my float planes for scouting. They are searching around. Normally I don't like to go for long range. This was only sometimes you can do this, but you cannot do this too often where you burn your airframes and you burn or give additional burden to your pilot. So I normally have only 8. But yeah. And I use this float planes only for scouting. And my fighters are really escort. They're making sweep, they're making escort, or they're making cap. And nothing else. My dive bombers, I always use a 10,000 because then they're diving more deep and have a very high chance to make a strike. Because if you go less than 10,000, you will not make more dive attacks and you make a level attack. So dive bombers have between 10,000 but not over 15,000. And my torpedo bombers I run always with 7,000. But this is related because the American or Allied medium flak can go up to 6,000 feet. So with 7,000 feet I'm out of range of all light and medium Allied flak power, and only heavy flak can attack me. But the Allies have still so much heavy flak that even that is often enough to hurt my air groups. And you can see this is here you normally can carry 72 units, but now we have only 52 here on board. Of course we're missing here 2, but I miss here only 2 Zero fighters. So, but we can see that in July the Japanese regroup this unit from 18 to 26. So I get 8 additional fighters here. The dive bombers will also change from 18 to 26, so 8 additional airframes. But the torpedo bombers will change from 18 to 17. So I will lose 1 torpedo bomber, but I get 16 additional airplanes here. And if you add this up, then you can see that then we come close to the 71. Okay. I don't know if there's much more to say. I don't think so. Here's this operation are all over. I took all the bases are important for me. Now I will normally consider and establish here some New order, bring additional forces to Port Moresby, try to fix this, bring supplies, bring fuel, bring Navy Guard units here, and also install here some additional bases and build here some defense line of bases to protect Rabul. And after that is done, to consider my situation, my bases, I will maybe at the same time or shortly after try to launch the next strike on first on maybe on Luganville, and if this is successful, depending how strong is the defense resistance of Dojo here, I will also jump from after taking Luganville, maybe go take New Caledonian, and even if that is successful without not high losses, I maybe can think about to take Suva, or maybe forget Suva and try to take these small bases here and have a big ambition plan to take Auckland and maybe New Zealand, because I mean New Zealand and New Caledonian together, especially if you have this many bases here, then Australia is dead. I mean, not completely dead, but then it's crazy for Dojo to manage everything. Good. I think there's not much more I want to say. I just had this special episode with additional information. Yeah. Okay. Thank you all. See you again. Take care. Bye bye.